It's the breakdown. Release that. Release that. Release that. It's the breakdown.
Hey, how's it going? It's your favorite lovely host, Key, and you're watching Primitive, and this is another edition of Build in Public, episode number 7. And today we're working on the Comic Panel app, specifically the Pixi.js integration, which is a mouthful. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday, and I just want to say really quickly, thank you so much for coming by the stream again. I know we're like a small and growing YouTube channel over here, and I really believe in small channels and small creators. And so I just want to thank you for coming over here. And if you're joining us for the first time, please, please, please go down and hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel, give us a follow, and hit the bell icon so you can get all the latest updates and news and notifications whenever we go live or publish new videos. My name is Key Clark, and let's get ready to code. Let's do this. Okay, so the last time during our stream, we were able to replace some of the front end stuff that we had with Pixi.js to integrate, because in the long run, Pixi.js is going to hold the canvas and all of the visual elements that we use to compose these comic book pages. So our app is pretty simple right now. I've decided to not do any styling, but you can see here that this red section here is going to be the interactive canvas area. We're going to put like an actual comic book page somewhere in the middle section here. We'll use the left to hold the tools, and we'll use the right to hold navigation related interfaces. If we go to our lovely app, Freeform, we can see a little bit about our UX design intentions. So this UI UX situation here is pretty basic. The main thing to note here is that this page is going to be our comic book page. In a very literal way, this will be the area where the users will get a chance to define their comic book page, and then all the stuff on the inside. So to me, this is actually really important to take a moment to kind of think about. So we want to maintain these proportions. Actually, we're going to have many different pages. Let's go ahead and write that out. We're going to have different proportions. And this is because when someone's making a comic book, it's very likely that they may be in a place that has different paper sizes. Or, like if you're in the West, we have Western paper sizes. And if you're in a place like Japan or Korea or China, they have different sizes for their comics as well. So we want to have all of those able to be accommodated for. Essentially, whenever a user loads a page into the working area here, the workspace area, let's call that the workspace area. Yeah. So whenever a user loads a page here into the workspace, they will be able to load any number of different paper proportions. This is all going to be vector, so there's not going to be like definite sizes of things, but there will be definite proportions that relate to different page sizes. So let us go ahead and get those sizes. Off screen, I'm just going to ask Gemini to give me the top paper sizes for comic book pages. Actually, I think I could just do this. Let's just do this here. I'll do this on screen with you. We don't need all this real estate for Freeform, do we? Oops, I went the wrong direction. There you go. So we have our companion here, Gemini. We're going to use Flash model. This isn't too intense. So I'm going to say, tell me what the most common comic paper sizes are globally. While that's going, oh, that was pretty fast. Okay, never mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a list here. Let's read through this. Standard comics in America. Let's do these as centimeters. So I'll say make this in a table and do centimeters. Because I don't want to have to deal with like conversions and stuff. And when you're dealing with printing and paper, it is pretty common to use the standard system. So we'll do US. Oh, I wonder if we can just copy this whole thing. That'd be so nice. Can we do that? Nope, that didn't work. let's just take a screenshot. We can just do like this. Okay, it's on my desktop. I'll just copy, and that didn't work. Okay, paste. There we go. Okay, so now we have our most common paper sizes for comics here. And we need to make sure that basically as we're coding this, when we get to the point where we add the actual canvas, so page canvas, we need to make sure that we can render this so that the proportions change, although the relative size, the proportion stays the same, although the relative size that we're actually viewing this at can change, because I do want to have the ability to zoom in and to zoom out. Let's go ahead and find a plus symbol here. I want to be able to zoom in down here, and I want to be able to zoom out. So that's going to be a minus, like this. And we'll make those black. Okay, so yeah, so the ability to zoom in and zoom out is going to come from the fact that we're dealing with proportions and proportional scaling of a surface. So we'll say scaling happens because the canvas area is defined by scalable proportions rather than a fixed size. Okay, so this was something I kind of worked out in my last my prototype for this, but I hadn't really like fleshed it out fully, so I'm not entirely sure like what the best way to do this, and specifically because on the page we're going to have a couple of key things that are going to make this a little bit challenging. So let's go ahead and get rid of the color on this and make this just into a let's do a line here. We'll do a solid line actually, and then we'll make this one side or magenta. And let's make this surface here white. We want this to really look like a page. I'm going to make this kind of literally like the way I want this to look when I do my design. So let's actually fill this with white. Otherwise, we don't get the ability to click in the middle of it. And then we need to have two of these. We need to have one for the bleed and then one for the safe area. So when you make comics, there is a bleed, and the bleed is going to be the area. I might be getting these mixed up. Let's see. Make sure I get my terms right. Actually, we should look up some reference for this. Okay, so when you have a comic book, here we go. You have crop marks. So this outer section here is basically a way to indicate that we are going to have a place where the comic page would potentially be cut if this were to be assembled so that it was in a book, right? Because when you have a book, you print the pages and then you cut them. And then there's going to be this area that is inside of it, and it is going to be the area that's like considered safe. So you could draw outside of it, but if you draw outside of this area, this blue area, then it may not necessarily be a safe place to put important details. I don't know if you've ever looked at a comic, but a lot of times you'll see that if there's something like a face or a figure or something you're meant to notice on the layout, then they will tend to keep it away from the edges of the page. So let's make this one a little bit, it's a little too aggressive. I feel like that diagram that we were just looking at is not the best template, comic page template. I used to have like a template. This is more accurate. And there's like actual, numbers that are considered industry standard for these templates. Let's just ask here, can you give me the measurements for the bleed trim stuff? I feel like I should know this because I have literally a master's degree for illustration comics, but let's face it, I'm rusty. Okay, so we have bleed, trim, and live area. That's what each of these basically represent. And this isn't like a literal representation, so forgive me if this looks weird. But the main thing here is that we capture the concept. So let's just throw some arrows in here. So this is the live area. This is the trim. And then this is the bleed here. Okay, so the trim area is the part that actually will exist after the page has been cut, and then the safe area is the place where for all text and critical art. Okay, so I need to find a strategy for turning these into ratios or proportions. So for the 5 page sizes, I would like you to make a table with the bleed, trim, and live area that is recommended, and also include ratios and proportions. Ratios, which are proportions. If I were to do scalable graphics, vector art. Another thing too is I wanted to include also additionally include 8 by 11 and 9 by 16, because that's 9 by 16 is nice, because what if someone wants to make a comic book that is meant to be viewed on a phone? 8.5 by 11 is good, because what if this is like something a person just wants to be able to print out on their computer, the full paper size? Eventually, I will probably just make a system where people can create their own templates at any size, but keeping it to this specific list, I think, will make it easier on me. And then also, for each of these now 7 different options, what I'm imagining is that you can do them in a landscape or a portrait view as well. So that will also provide some additional flexibility. I'm going to put these descriptions actually with the text here, because I'm going to probably forget this stuff later on too. So let's just go ahead and fix this up real nice here real quick. This is like the slow, boring stuff that you have to do when you're developing software, but it's not the stuff that you're going to see people like talk about when they're vibe coding or whatever online. But I promise you, if you have this process where you're actually slowing down enough to think through the problems in a more critical and slow, intentional way, your software is going to turn out way better. And also, you're going to be learning way more as well, because you're really, really involving yourself in the process. And then this one's the live area. Okay, so this one's going to be 18, bold, and I think we're good. Probably should have put these inside of like some type of sticky note or something, but I think this is fine. I actually low-key really, really enjoy this part of being a developer. I like solutioning. I like diagramming. I like coming up with a clear plan, and kind of just working an idea, you know. Okay, so those are the three things. Okay, let's go ahead and submit our. Let's go ahead and submit this. And I'm going to replace it. I'm going to replace this table here. And let's zoom out real quick. Yeah. We can actually take this whole section, and we don't need to have this like out there so much. Okay, and we'll zoom in here. Okay, so now we have this lovely table. These are going to be all the proportions and sizes that we care about. And let's just go ahead and take a screenshot of this. And then off screen, I'm going to get that image, and we're going to paste it in here. I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't use Freeform, y'all are missing out. I mean, there's like better apps than Freeform. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like a stand for it necessarily, but you know, just the fact that it's for free, it comes on all Mac computers, and you don't have to do much to take advantage of it. It's like you might as well. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you use Freeform, and you have like a Mac or like iOS phone and an iPad, and you know your work computer has that same operating system too, it's so easy to share diagrams and things made. So easy. So easy. It couldn't be easier. I hope they continue to develop it and make it better though. It's kind of like the Microsoft Paint of like whiteboard software, but it does work pretty well for most things. Okay, so that's good. So this is essentially what we're going to be moving towards. Now, at the moment, all we care about is creating a live area within our current UI. So this is our UI. All we care about is making a live area in this UI section. And then I want the ability to have it centered somewhere in here. Actually, I want it to be able to take up as much vertical space as possible, but I want it to be centered. And I also want it to be anchored so that it is always aligned at the center here, even if its size changes. I don't want it to like float around yet. Eventually, I will have the ability for the canvas to float within the working area. I'm even thinking about the ability to open up multiple canvases. That would be kind of nice, and have them all sort of loaded here so you can see the pages arranged and kind of work with them. But that's a more complicated pattern. And if I can solve the architecture and the structure of just one page, then it will apply to, you know, in a large part to many pages essentially. So starting with like the least common denominator for what I hope to build in the future. Okay, so now there's one more thing I have to start thinking about. I don't need to solve this problem right now, but a huge thing here is that if we're making an interactive canvas, we need to have layers. if you've ever used a creative software like GIMP, Photoshop, Affinity Designer, Affinity Paint, PaintShop Pro, Procreate, Corel Painter, any of these types of software, then you know like a pretty significant feature that they have is layers. And so what a layer is the ability to have objects that are organized within a frame, but then to have those objects organized so that they appear to be distinguished by a z-axis. So there is essentially a type of virtual depth that you can have with the elements on your surface. So that's going to be an important system for me. And not just the concept of it or how to organize it as like a actual JavaScript object, but more importantly, how do we get these objects here to be saved in a convenient format so that they can be reloaded. So in my prototype, I used a database to store information about specific pages. But at this point, I'm going to be actually thinking about how do we make a file type so that we can store the data in a more raw way in a file so that it's portable. And also, so if you have data that's so there's going to be a problem if we have the user save all of their creative art canvas data in the database, is that it's not going to be portable. And we want our users to be able to potentially download these files, these canvases, save them somewhere for backup, or even transfer them or share them. So we need to have a file type that's going to be able to work with what we're doing. Now, there is a standard that we can take advantage of. And there's like TIFF, for example. We can do PSD. Like all these are like conventions for how to store layered documents. And those might actually work for our needs. So we'll have to think about that at some point. So let's say file format. And let's see. I want to have a file format that will store layers for a canvas, which may contain text, vector, and raster elements that are let's just say it like that. Raster elements, and have, I don't care about blending modes, but in the future I might want that. And I'll just say it's for creative design software. I'm sure it's going to tell me like PSD. One thing I could do to improve my prompt here is I want to make sure that I'm using a standard file type or a standard that is open. So PSD is proprietary. A lot of applications can work with PSD, but you know that's owned by Adobe. Let's see here. I don't. SVG actually could be. No, SVG is not layered. I want an open standard such as what would work for GIMP or comparable software. There was one that I remember reading about, but I forget what it was, so that's why I'm having to remember it right now. XCF. Okay. Layers, text, and vector. Could I actually implement XCF in my... And the other thing too is I could actually make my own standard if I wanted to. The only thing is that I become really responsible for compatibility. But I can make a standard that is just meant to be temporary until an official one is drafted, and then just make sure that the data structure for the canvas is operable with it. I don't know. So could I actually implement XCF? I don't like how that is spelled. XCF. for my app without any restrictions. GIMP is open source. I haven't used GIMP in ages. I haven't used GIMP in forever. GIMP used to be like my primary driver for illustration and computer design and graphics back in like 2009 when I was broker than broke. I wonder what does GIMP even look like nowadays. There's Inkscape. I remember Inkscape. I used Inkscape too for a long time. Okay. GIMP is basically just Photoshop, open source Photoshop. Okay, so let's go down here. Oh, I would have to use their license in order to use their format. Okay, is there an open standard that is capable of handling a comic layout design app? And free from restrictions. Now I saw that TIFF was an option, but it seemed like TIFF is a large file size. Transparency, different color profiles. A PNG for each layer? Oh man. Open raster. ORA. Okay, open raster is a format. Is an excellent fit for comic layout app because it is free from licensing restrictions and supports all the features you've requested. The specification is free and not tied to any single software license. You can implement it in your application without fear of GPL or copyleft licenses impacting your software's distribution model. The format is built around the concept of layers. You would use TIFF because they... Oh, hey, Z Scripter. Hey, what's up, Scripter? You said I would use TIFF, can be converted easily after. Yeah, I'm gonna put TIFF on my list here in ORA. I might have to do some research outside of today's stream because this is a little bit of a tangent. But yeah, I'm getting the vibe that it's either going to be ORA or TIFF, or possibly I'll try to find like the common denominator between these two formats and then code towards that. And then, figure out which one to prioritize later on. My data structure inside of my actual application state doesn't need to be either of these formats, but it does need to respect them enough for there to be like a transformation so that people can save files. That's the only thing. Yeah. Layers can happen in TIFF too. Okay, so blending modes. I don't really care about blending modes. For this comic app, I just care about being able to lay out panels and to do like really simple thumbnail drawings, because my hope is that a person can just take the file that they make in my app and then just take it over to Procreate or PaintShop Pro or like whatever they try to use. And if we do blending modes and stuff, that'll be like more important later on. So text and vector elements, cool. Okay. Okay, cool. So I think that's at least something to come back to. We'll just put this here, file format, TIFF or Aura. Okay, so anyways, that was a nice little brainstorm. And if you're new to the channel, thanks for coming by the way. I always appreciate seeing people here. I take the content from these live streams and then I will go back and make clips and stuff. and put them on the channel. So if you can't stay for the whole stream, which is like absurdly long, don't feel bad. You can always just subscribe and come back and watch the videos later on. Okay, so I'm just going to look up TIFF format really quick. I want to see the actual official information about TIFF. Is there like there's a Wikipedia page, okay. An Aura file standard. Not Rita Ora, the singer, but Aura, the, the file format. So we're going to tell Rita Ora, one of my favorite songstresses, that her last name is a file format. Okay. Open raster. Okay. Open raster is a file format proposed for the common exchange of layered images between raster graphic editors. It's meant as a replacement for later versions of the Adobe PSC format. Okay, cool. Still in development? Okay. That makes me feel a little bit like, it's still in development. Well, who's all using it? Okay. Krita. I have not heard of many of these. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, when I'm reading these names here, I'm like, yeah, these all sound like C-list graphic applications. Let me stop being a hater though, because I can't make these. Okay, let's check out the chat real quick. Do I do this as a hobby? Well, I do. Yeah. I mean, I'm a professional software engineer. I've been a professional software engineer since 2018. And I started coding and making web apps and web pages when I was in high school. I'm older than I look. So back in like 2008, just like everyone else, I was making my MySpace page, doing my CSS, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Yeah. So I started working professionally as a software developer in 2018 after going to a boot camp, though. I actually taught at the same boot camp for 2.5 years as well. And that's all to say that even though this has been my career, I really like coding. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it just scratches an itch. I look at like making things with code as like just a form of thing making, if that makes sense. Like, the same way someone might like to have a wood shop or, like a hobby kit to make something, I just look at coding and making apps like the same thing. So it's genuinely something I love to do. I love doing it more than I like talking about it. Yeah. I like actually like even like this kind of stuff. I like doing this. I'm not as much of a theorizer and whatever, but I really enjoy making things. Okay, so TIFF, tag image file format, commonly known as TIFF, supported for scanning, faxing, word processing, optical character recognition. Okay, so something I might want to consider is a file format that is easily parsable, because I want my documents to be easily consumable as context for AI. Like, in the event that someone does make a layout in my app, and that layout includes text or includes images that are pasted into the canvas, I want for the ability to still work with all that data instead of having it all flattened out. So I'm looking for a format that can preserve, or at least I have the ability to preserve it. Specifically with text, I want to preserve literal text information so that I can do some type of looping thing over the file to extract the actual language from it, which could be really useful for generative stuff. Okay, so this is a little bit deeper than I want to read tonight, but it seems like TIFF might actually end up being a better format. So thank you for recommending that. Just reading that the Aura standard is less supported, or less championed by fewer people, and that it's also still in development. It's like, okay. So I think it's going to be TIFF, but we'll make that decision later on. Okay, so this is my plan for now. the main thing that I want to do is I want to focus on taking this workspace area and putting a page canvas on the inside. And I'm going to be vibe coding my way through this because that's what I'm doing. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to our application. We can make this minimized for now. Okay, so our app looks like this. First thing we have to do is I noticed that there was a bug yesterday. Let me reload this. Let's reload this at the smallest size so you can see what the bug is. So when I first load this, you see how everything loads in the proportional way. So when I scale the page, it also maintains this proportion. This red area, this is just the workspace, not the actual page. So the way that this is scaling is good. Now the issue is that whenever I go back to make the page or the window smaller, you can see that the scaling doesn't reverse itself. So we need to make it where this whole like working area always resizes itself, so that we essentially just aren't, creating a weird UI experience here. Okay, I want to keep the navigation and the tools always stickied, to the sides. In fact, yeah, let's go look at our code. Okay, so for this, I still have my chat session from yesterday open. I need to make one update before I start this work. I'm going to say we have like kind of gotten off a little bit from our plan here, which was literally to just replace Pixi with the thing that we had before. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to slightly change our goal. And then I think at the end, I'm going to come back and like refactor this document to reflect what we actually did. Okay, so our whole page layout is in this main page document here. And you can see here we have 3-column layout. So there's a left, center, and right, which is left, center, and right. And then if we go to the actual page directory, I got so much stuff open right here. Okay, so we're in the page directory. We go to center. We can see we have this canvas renderer, and we have the background color set here. I guess that's the red. I'm gonna probably change that at some point to something more interesting, like maybe like a gray and white checkered area. I agree, Scripter. I like to make things that are not always useful. I really like doing experiments and spikes. I like trying something for like a really, really short project, like maybe a day or two, and then like moving on. If I can have a job where I do that, that'd be great. Okay, so let's go check out the canvas renderer component. This is that entire canvas section. So we can see here that the height and the width, it's at 100%, but let me just see what Cascade thinks, and we can change this to use the Sonnet 4 model for now. So I'm going to send it a couple. Actually, we can't do screenshots. Dang. Let's open up Windsurf browser. I think we can kind of hijack our Tauri app and we can just look at it through the browser, because we're not really concerned with the invoke commands or anything like that for our Rust backend yet. So our UI is just React, so we can go to localhost 5. I think it's 1420 actually. 1420. Okay, so there's our app, and let's refresh. Okay. Okay, so it's still doing the same behavior even though we're on the web. So then what I can do is let's check out the logs to make sure there's no like errors here. Okay, we're going to send over the logs. But then also we're going to send over some screenshots, and then we're going to explain that what we needed to do. So the first thing is, this is a standard screenshot. This looks fine. And then we're going to do our like little scaling thing here. And I'm going to show it how when we go back to the size it was before, we lose a lot of our UI because it's hidden. Okay, so I think those two screenshots should be good. I'll say, can you address the logs issues and also with the UI for the canvas renderer, I noticed that when the page is made larger and then made smaller, the canvas renderer section doesn't scale back down, therefore causing the right sidebar section to become lost. Can you please make it where the canvas renderer will always scale proportional or scale with the will always scale appropriately. Okay, all my typos in there, do not judge me. Okay, I'm not going to go back and fix them. Okay, just deal with it. I always have typos. Do you, as far as projects to type out or to try out, that's a great question. I don't, are you good with Python? I have a repo that is like Python experiments. Let me open it up here on my other screen. So maybe that's like a good place to start out. And in fact, this whole repo is available. The link for the thing I'm working on right now is in the description. Although I'm working on the development branch, so you'll have to be on that branch to see the exact things I'm doing. But you can check out this repo if you want to. But there's also a Jupyter Python experiments repo that I've worked on here and there for a while. And the link is in the chat. So check that out. You do need Python for this to work, but these are just some like data science type experiments that I've done. My favorite one in here is the Beyonce lyric analyzer. Fun stuff. And if you open up any of these inside of GitHub, the actual Python notebook documents, you'll be able to see these render, which is pretty cool to see. There's one in here that's about Pokemon stats that I really had a lot of fun on. But yeah, I did analytics for a while, and it got me interested in analytics and natural language processing and stuff like that. Okay, so so it went ahead and tried to fix it. Okay, so Pixi.js deprecation warnings. Okay. Solid clean move, clean up, call inside mount. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. The main problem was the Pixi.js's resize to option doesn't handle dynamic late. Oh. Okay, so resize 2. Let's where is that? Okay. So it's going to be based on the width of the app container and defaulting to 800 by 600. Okay. Let's see what happens. Let's reload this. Oh, interesting. So then I think this is now actually reloading the canvas. But at least it is working now. Now the other thing is that at a certain height, it needs to do the same thing for the height. Excuse me. Oh, it's interesting. Okay, so when this scaling is happening, it is. Okay, so let's make a quick update here. I noticed that the issue with the height is similar. The canvas renderer needs to the dynamic height of the window. Okay, so it's going to be another issue trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that this component might be reloading when the view changes, or not the component, but the canvas. I'm not sure exactly how to deal with that part. Oh, max height hyphen. Okay, cool. Let's see how this works now. And I think I might be missing a padding at the bottom. Oh, thanks for following me on GitHub. Yeah, I'll check it out too, and I'll see. It'll probably let me follow you back. I don't even know how to check. How do you see like who followed you on GitHub? They should make it easier. I guess I could just follow all the people who follow me, and then that will include you. Cool. I think I gotcha. I always forget to follow people on GitHub. Okay, so let's see what it's doing now. Now the canvas should fill the entire space without being cut off at the bottom. Here's what I changed. Okay, oh, we have absolute full positioning. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this looks better. And now the scaling appears to work. I wonder if there's a chance for me to get, I wish I could record actually. Let's reload this. Oh, okay, there's something I'm gonna do really quick. I'm gonna go ahead and make a quick commit here. I'm gonna bring in a logger. And I'm going to talk a little bit about custom logging and why this is actually really important for situations like this and pretty much everything else we're about to get into. So let's make a quick commit really quick. And I love the fact that you could do commit without having to write it now. Like that to me is so nice. Okay, so that commit's done. Okay, so custom logging is important. Now, this is a logger that I created for my own website, Primatif.com, which, by the way, is getting a huge update soon, so please stay tuned for that. But a logger is a really important tool because there are a lot of things when you're coding that are not very evident just by looking at your code, right? We all know that when you use console logs, that the purpose a lot of times is to make data apparent, or to show us some of the stuff under the hood as it's happening in our code when it's running in the runtime. Now, let's say that you have a lot of console logging going on, and you have a need for a lot of console logs in order to debug, especially if you're trying to provide feedback for your AI agent. Well, for that and a lot of other reasons, I recommend having a custom logger. Now, you can get custom loggers. There are actually libraries out there that provide logging utilities. I don't have a need for an incredibly sophisticated one right now, so I just created my own logger. And the way that this works is whenever this logger is running in production mode, then none of the logs will show up. It'll simply just return and won't do anything. Now, when the logger is operating in dev mode or any other mode, such as debug, then what that means is that it is actually going to show all of these different levels of logs. And then I can sort of use this logger freely throughout my code without worrying about muddying up the waters on what people see when they're actually running the application on their own. So this logger is going to be really useful. And because I made this like such a small discrete file and it's all together in just like one thing here, I can actually just copy this whole thing from my front end on my website, and I'll just inherit it into my comic project. And let's find a good place for this to live. I think we can put this inside of a utils folder here. And we'll just paste that in. And now we have this logger. So let's go ahead and commit this. There we go. And we'll just submit that. And then what I'm going to use this logger for, I need to do one thing before I jump to that. I need to say I have added a custom logger for the front end. I need you to permanently remember to always use it for logging and never use the console log directly in any of our code. And I need to make sure as well that I have my development mode or my app environment set here. So this app environment is actually what's going to be used here. So we need to call this app environment. And so when this app environment is production, then it won't run. But as long as app environment here is something other, and right now we have it set to development, let's actually add a comment here. Oops. Let's add a comment here. We say that the different options are development, production, debug, and test. Yeah. So it's always going to be one of these three. And so we're going to basically tell our Cascade model here to always use our custom logger, and we'll give it a path for it as well, like that. Let's give it a relative path. Like that. Okay. Maybe instead of percent, I can do DVH or D. Yeah, that's a good point. I feel like that part maybe could change. Let me look into it. Let's see. Let me just Google it off my DBW. Dynamic viewport units. Mm-hmm. The only thing is that, and maybe I need to think through this a little bit more, but this this canvas area, its size isn't really determined by the viewport. It's determined by the remaining area of the div for this section, because the two sidebars are a fixed size, and then whenever the scaling happens here, it's this middle section that basically is just taking up whatever available space is left over because it's flex. So I'm not sure that the dynamic viewport size might be useful for the actual page inside of the workspace area, but I'm not sure if it'll be useful for the workspace area itself. But I could be wrong. I might need to revisit that. Okay, so let's see here. Canvas renderer. Okay, we added the logger. Okay, so we got some logs in here. I'm going to ask it to please update the canvas renderer component with good TS docs. I feel like this is not very good. Okay, so we have the logger for that. Where else is it being used? For errors, cool. Actually, there's actually a logger that I need to use in this that is for Tauri. I just remembered. I just remembered that actually. Is it in here? Tauri config. I thought I had a logger. Tauri plugin log, and then there's one for here. Tauri plugin log. Okay, I think that's what I need to use. We need to use Tauri plugin log. Yeah, if we use Tauri plugin log, then it'll handle the visibility of the logging messages based on the environment variable. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I had like a brain lapse there. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. Let's get it to undo that. So native logging integrates with REST backend, file base. Yeah, that's right. Because I spent all that time, I think, what was it, stream number 2 or 3, we set up the logger and we have the log messages going to that log file that we could read. So yeah, let's use that instead. I was tripping. My bad. My bad. Okay. So it's going to make that update for us. And we should just tell it to store a memory for this. I don't know. I might have messed up my memory. Okay, so here's a memory for it right here. And okay, so it didn't say my other thing that I asked it to. Okay, whatever. You just ignore me. You know what's best, I suppose. Ugh, okay. Okay, so it updated that. So I don't need this logger. Never mind. Psych. Just kidding. Let's go delete that utils folder. And let's go ahead and accept my file changes here. And then let's just read through this and see what's going on. Okay, so optional fixed width for the canvas. I want to change this. I want to change this to call this workspace renderer. And we'll update that. And we'll update this. And then we'll just go back to our page here. We'll make sure that this is up to date here. Oh, you know what? We don't have to do that. We can just change it in here. Let's change refactor Oh, you know what? I think we can just change all instances. And let's rename the symbol. So workspace renderer props. And let's also rename this symbol. Should have chose a better name. Sometimes I'm like, just the fact that I have to type this makes me not want to name it this. It could be the perfect name, but my laziness sometimes surprises me. Okay, so then now we can change all of the remaining strings that have the word canvas. We'll just make that say workspace. Actually, let's do this. Let's just save ourselves some heartache here. Can you update the language in the workspace render component because we renamed the canvas render to that. Okay, and then in here, what we got? Okay, so those are changes. Okay, I think I need a little bit of a break here to stretch my legs. Let's see, we've been streaming for 1 hour and 10 minutes. Thank y'all for coming here. I think we had like 5 people all together at once, which is a large amount for my small YouTube channel. So thank you so much. Oh, thanks. My homepage is a work in progress. I need to spend more time. I need to spend like dedicated time working on that stuff. But thank you so much. I received the compliment. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to hear that. Okay, so updated. Okay, so yeah, it just updated the language here in the docs for me because I didn't want to do that manually. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a quick commit here. Like that. When we come back, we're gonna use the logger to get just some standard logging messages. Excuse me. We're gonna use it to get some standard logging messages in here, which will help us a lot. It'll make it easier for us to debug too, because we'll have something that we can actually pass to our agent as a feedback loop. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. I'm going to come back in 15 minutes, so don't go too far. But if you go anywhere, make your way back to the pack. You already know who it is. My name is Key. This is Primatif, and I'll see you in a little bit.
First of all, I mean, as we know, the World Health Organization just declared this a global health emergency. For Americans who are watching this, how serious is this? What's keeping you up at night?
That this is an evolving situation. Literally every day we learn a little bit more about it. That you can actually have transmission from one to another. The transmission from person to person to person, that's called sustained transmission. When that happens, the situation becomes a bit more serious.
Do we know how virulent this is, or is this a very deadly respiratory virus? Of the world's population is now living under
under some form of lockdown due to coronavirus. More than 3 billion people in almost 70 countries and territories have been asked to stay at home. There are now more than 450,000 recorded cases of the virus globally. But we know that testing is not readily available in many places, so that number is likely to be much higher. So let's take a look at the situation across the globe.
This is Madrid's biggest ice. It's been requisitioned to hold the dead. They need it. There are so many of them.
One and a half million face masks, 500,000 respirators, 500,000 fast emergency testing kits, hundreds of ventilators.
So that number is likely to be much higher. That's called sustained transmission. When that happens, the situation becomes a bit more serious. So let's take a look at the situation across the globe.
At a time when gatherings of more than 2 people are still banned, today's demonstrations were clearly a direct challenge to those rules.
This is one of a number of protests across the country, but this one is by far the largest.
The protest happened as the government's coming under pressure to relax the rules on demonstrations after 60 MPs signed a letter to the Home Secretary, coordinated by the campaign group Liberty.
This is Madrid's biggest ice rink. It's been requisitioned to hold the dead. They need it. There are so many of them.
Threatening to overwhelm the country's health systems, leaving people fighting for hospital beds, oxygen and medicines.
Nationwide, there have been 1,761 deaths in the last 24 hours. That is the highest death toll in a single day so far.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. My name is Key, and this is Primitive. And you're watching the Build in Public stream. We're working on the Comic Panel app. This is a long-term project, so we're making small steps every stream, but we're doing it together. We're doing it in public. I'm sharing my thoughts and tips and tricks and stuff like that as I go. So anyways, thanks for joining me, and let's get back to it. Okay, so where we left off, we had just fixed the renderer. We also added some better TS docs to our main code. Oh, hey, thanks for being here with us. I see the chat too, so thanks for sticking around. So we just added better documentation here, and I think that this is pretty good. So what's next? Let's see. We got style here. I think something I want to do is I want the background to be a white and gray checkered. But I want to define a constant for the checkered background in case I want to use it for something else. So I want to define a new component for rendering a checkered background, and I want it to be configurable so that we can change the square sizes. And then I want to use this as the background for the are we using app container? Where's app container? Where's app container coming from? Oh, it's here. Okay, so use it for the background of the workspace renderer area. Excuse me. Yeah, I would definitely check out your website or your project if you have anything. You can always send an email to the official email, which is hello@primatif.com. If you look at this screen, you'll see the contact information. If you have anything you want me to check out or give you feedback on, by the way, I also do coaching too. Just click. So yeah, you can rewind back to that. But yeah, I do coaching and teaching and stuff like that. So if you ever need those types of help as well, let me know. Let me know. I got you. I got you. I love helping and teaching. When I was a teacher, that was one of my favorite parts, was to like work with people on their solo projects and on their group projects and stuff, and to give feedback and guidance. And it's just so much fun. It's so much fun. I would love to get to the point where I can maybe even do that kind of thing on air for people. That'd be dope. Okay, so we reworked the, okay, so we have the checkered background pattern as well. Cool. Let's see how it looks. It doesn't show. Okay. Oh, I think we have something overriding it. Let's see what our implementation is doing. I think here we had this background color. I think maybe it was that. Yep, that was it. Okay, so now we can see that we have this canvas working area. And let's make the star red so we can at least still see it. Yeah, let's do that. I have too many apps open right now. So checkered background, cool. Oh wait, we can actually adjust the colors on it too. Okay, cool. Props, checkered color. Okay, so there's two things I want to do before I move on. I want to make it where the default gray colors for, like this right here, the checkered light color and dark color, I want to make sure that we have constants for those that are at the theme level so that we don't have to rewrite them every time we make an implementation of that specific component. So that to me would be a really smart thing to do. And then where are we getting this workspace renderer props from? Is it workspace renderer? We're not passing any props there. Okay. So then that means that the default for those props are right here. I must be overlooking him. Oh, so defaults to these two. Okay. So I want to do this. Let's do, can you save the default colors for the checkered background to the top level theme as constants? And let's, there's probably a better way to do this, but whatever, I'm just going to do it the way that I'm doing it. So let's get that saved inside of maybe here, or either there, or maybe this theme. No, not theme. So it's probably there, or I had a tailwind config here. Let's do it in tailwind config. Tailwind config.js, and then use these instead of making. And then just use these for our implementation, and the component for the checkered background can still take an optional args for the two colors as well as the square size. Oh, I also want to make sure that square size is saved as a constant as well. Is it called square size? Is that what it was called? Yeah, square size. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so these are the two defaults, and so we can just go ahead and tell it lines 57, 59. It's probably going to find it, but whatever. So lines 57 through 59 is where the default values are set. Okay. Cool. Thanks for reaching out. One of the things I'm adding to the website that you all see, hopefully next week, is I'm going to make it easier for people to connect. So on the website, there will be like an actual form where, like, if you ever want like reviews, or if you're just interested in working with me as like a coach or anything like that, or even if you have a company and you're looking for like some freelance help, my website is going to make a lot of that stuff like way easier. So I almost wish I had it now so you could be the first one to try it. Okay, well, this is going to have to be next week though. So yeah, I'm actually excited to help people though. So it's one of my favorite things. I feel like being a developer is so much better when you can see the impact of like helping people. And a lot of times when you're just focused on just the app part of making things, you have to wait so long where your app may never actually land. But then like actually helping other developers and other programmers and other learners and stuff like that, to me, that's my stuff. Okay, so this TS docs here might be a little overboard. I don't actually need to have these examples here, but let's just leave it. This is a little much though. I usually don't do my stuff this verbose. Okay, so the background. Okay, so all this looks great now. I'm just kind of doing like a little code review here. Size, square size. Okay. What's the default square size? What's the default square size again? Oh, it's saved it in theme config. I'm going to make the executive decision to move. I'm going to move this utils into styles, and I'm going to move the theme utils into this utils folder. And actually, I think the theme I don't know. There's something weird happening here with this hierarchy. This is like my OCD. Okay, I'm going to leave this like this, but I'm going to have to refactor the way this is all set up in the future. I don't like that, but I'm not going to get on that tangent right now. Is there such thing as like code CD or something? I don't know. Like folder in file hierarchy is like one of my #1 pet peeves. Okay, yeah. Take a break. Yeah. Come back later. I'll probably be on for like another I don't know, like another 30 minutes or so. Another 30 to 40 minutes, so. But if not, just go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification thing. I'll be going live again probably on Monday or Tuesday. So, I'll be doing these twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week moving forward. So thanks for coming by. Catch you later. Adios. Okay, so let's go back to our workspace renderer. I just want to turn that star red. That was the other thing I wanted to do. Center star. How is this being created? Star container. Graphic path fill. Here it is. I want to do like red. I wonder if I change this comment if windsurf will help me out. Is that going to help me out? Please help me out. Yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So this is looking a little better. This star, actually, we don't need a star there. That star is going to be where our actual canvas exists. So if we do this right now, we see that the star, it is not changing proportions, which is a solvable problem. But first, we need to set up some global state. We need to set up some global state because we want the data for our objects that we see inside of the canvas to come from the global state. That way we can have access to the actual data to be able to like use it in like a more transformative way, like more easily. Because what I'm imagining is that the global state is kind of like this intermediate. It's going to fetch the actual source of truth data from whether it's a file or we just save it to the database directly. It's going to save that source of truth and it's going to hold it, and then the DOM is going to be rendered from that. Actually, no, this is going to be more complicated because I have the back end. The back end is going to hold the data from whatever the source is. Then the front end is going to make a query to the back end to get that data. But I guess I don't need to have a global store for data. I don't know. Is it better to put the data for the page in the global store or in the backend store, like the backend cache? I think it's going to be a good strategy to have the front end store reflect any changes that are processed and made in the back end, because the back end performance is what's going to allow the canvases to transform more quickly when there's a lot of data in it, especially when the canvas becomes really complicated. So the back end is really the source of truth. Let's go ahead and kind of like diagram this out. I think I need to explain this on the outside of my head a little bit. Okay, so we have some infrastructure here, or we have a stack here. We have the front end. And let's make this gray. This will be the last activity we do, and then we'll get off of here. So we'll come back and finish this in the next stream. So we have this, and we have the front end. We have a back end. Oh, the front end is in solid Vite. And then we have a back end. And we have, let's call this app server. And this is Rust. And then we have SQL, SQLite for the data store. And for now, let's just assume that we're going to store data in SQL. We'll eventually store it somewhere other than SQL whenever we get our our file type situation up, but we don't need all of that right now. So we have SQLite, we have the front end, we have the Rust server, and then we also have the Tauri framework itself, which is responsible for providing the toolkit and packaging and the building stuff. That's not super important for this specific diagram, but it does exist. So we'll just kind of put this stuff here. Now, on the front end, we are rendering a canvas that is of importance. And we'll make this red. So this is the canvas. Page. It's canvas page. Let's make this bold. So this is a canvas page. And then what I'm thinking is that there will be some type of global state, meaning any component within the front end, the SolidJS front end, can access this global state in order to get information or to interact with the model of the page. So I'm going to put this right here because the global state will also send and receive data in the form of fetches to the Rust backend. Let's put this one over, go this way. Okay, there you go. Let's make this thicker. Okay, so this is the global state. Will be fetching, or I think we have Axios. I can't remember which one we're using, but we'll be using the invoke, not Axios, because this is Tauri. Okay, so we'll be using invoke to an invoke is a function. It's a tool that is allows us to use inter-process communication to interact with our Rust backend through our JavaScript front end. And I think invoke should work. And I've never tried it inside of global state, but I'm pretty sure it'll work. Okay, so invoke allows us to send and receive. And then what I'm hoping is that when it comes to the front end, the global state is going to be the source of truth for the underlying data, dynamic data that we use to influence what is being rendered on the canvas page. So that will be the model, the page data model. And then there will also be a page data model that is managed by the application or the Rust server cache. So really this will be coming from, so there'll be an API, and that API will be pulling from the cache. And this cache will also have its own version of the page data model as well. And that will come from the data source, which right now is just going to be SQLite, but maybe something else later on. That is so tiny. Oh, I'm zoomed out a lot, that's why. Oh, yeah, I can make all this smaller. Sometimes I forget to zoom in when I start making things. Okay. Oh, this looks terrible now. Let's fix it. This can be 18. This is a click fest. So much clicking around. 18. There we go. This is much better. Okay, so we can make this one smaller. Let's do 24. Oh, you know what? We can do more than one at a time. What am I doing? Why am I doing all these separate? Okay, so this will be 18. And this will be 18? Okay, cool. Okay, so this global, oh, we can make these smaller too. So many things. These arrows are too big. Okay, so this global state here needs to be called cache. And the cache is going to store our page data model, which comes from our data source, which in this case will be SQLite. But like I said, that part could change and likely will change in the future. We're going to have to define an actual type for our data source in the meantime. But once we get an actual file type that we want to use, whether it's TIFF or Aura, then we can make the typing system for the front end and the back end match that. And that's something that could be modular. So we'll just work towards a solution right now that has a modular data source typing system. Something that is operable with TIFF or Aura. Now let's make this whole thing 14. And can you do highlighting on this? You can't. Oh, that's fine. Let's put this in a sticky note. Is there like a... Oh, this one's cool. Let's make that yellow. Okay. So the Tauri framework kind of encompasses all of this, but that Tauri framework is where we're getting this. So that's what's kind of allowing this whole invoke part of this to work. So let's give this a dashed line and let's give it a color like that, and we don't need it. We can do this. Yeah. Okay, so this could be just purple. Let's do our own purple. It's not really purple. There we go. Okay, so that's kind of how this is working here. I'm just biding time so I can get all my weird OCD things out of the way with this diagram. This is really engaging for me right now. Okay, so I think this is something how our data is going to flow. We have a canvas page. It is of whatever proportion that we have set, but then within it we'll have other content that is locked within the boundaries of that page. So hence this situation here. Now this whole page, its configuration as well as its contents, their arrangement, their positions, blending modes, all that kind of stuff, that stuff is going to be stored in a data structure, and we're going to call that stuff the page data model. There'll also be a model for collections. Collections are groups of pages, but this will be stored in global state, and then the rendering will refer to the details that are within the global state and store them. So if you have multiple layers, for example, let's actually, I'm just gonna like come up with like a kind of a fictive idea, but just to illustrate here, we could have a collection of layers, and then layers will have, let's make sure this is left aligned. We'll have layers, and then layers will have, they could possibly be a vector, so they have like a type. We need a text area, not a text thing. Does this work? Okay. So anyways, we'll just make this work. So we'll have layers, and then we'll have a type. Layers will be the main thing that this data model has, and each layer will have a type, and then each type will have each layer will also have contents. Oh, I'm getting this all messed up. Okay, so each layer will have contents. Each layer will have a blending mode. Each layer will also have an opacity. Each layer will have a name. And each layer will also have a index number. And the page will also have a, so layers will be an array. Each of these will have a page name. Let's make this all smaller so it's easier for you all to see. There we go. Let's bring this down a little bit more. I think we can get away with that. Okay, so each of these pages will have a name, which will be a string. They will also have a collection ID, which is optional. Page name is also optional. Let's tab all of this over. Oops, that didn't work. Psych. So name, collection, ID, layers, which will be an array and will be required. No, it'll just be an array of objects. Let's just say that for now. I don't know what sort, but it'll be some type of objects in the front end. Collection ID will be a number. What else? This is all I can think of for right now. But it'll be something like this, and this will be what we'll store for now. Contents here, I suppose, will be either a vector. No, wait. Let's see. It'll be content, which is plural, or which is singular, and that will either be a vector, shape. Oops, key. Where's my pipe key? There it is. So it'll be either a vector. It could be also a raster image. Let's just say vector, image, those are the two that matter right now. We'll define like what this means later on, but this also could contain some like relative positioning. So let's say positioning or position. And this will be relative to the canvas that it's being rendered on. So the layers themselves can be moved. The whole layer can be moved relative to the actual page. But we'll figure out all these details later on. I think the main thing here is that this data model here needs to be what actually influences what we're seeing on the page. And this data model needs to primarily live within the data source. It needs to be read into the cache memory of the application server. And then it needs to be received through an invoke command from the front end and then used to render the graphic in our canvas. Now, the part here where we're rendering it, well, holding the details at least, in the global state, this could be an opportunity to add a WebAssembly module, because WebAssembly modules do a lot more heavy lifting. It might come at a performance cost if we do it that way, we do it the incorrect way, but I'm thinking that this, using the global state as the primary place to manipulate live data and then try to send it back to the cache, this whole section right here, this is where like a lot of the bottlenecking is going to happen for performance, I'm imagining. Because the challenge is, how do we keep this synced up with the application server as the user starts to change things? We'll probably want to have like some type of delay, or maybe we will want to hold all of the processing and stuff in the front end until the user explicitly saves. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like right now, to be honest. Okay, so this is good though. I'm glad we thought about this. This is going to be the next thing we need to decide, because on our app, we want to basically render a page here. Now, rendering a box is easy. That's not going to be a hard thing. It's just literally a shape given a position. But we want more than that. We want to make sure that whatever we render in this area, I can draw on the screen now. I have an app for this actually. Let me Presentify. Okay. So basically what we want to do is we want to render a page here, but we want to make sure that whatever we render in this page is actually being influenced by the data model instead of just being something that we're like rendering like randomly, it randomly, like in an ephemeral way. That's probably the better term. Okay, so this data model is going to exist in two places, but the source of truth is going to always be the data source. The back end is going to be the place where we can, if we want to, we can do some like processing for things like saving the files and exporting and stuff like that. And then the front end is going to be where we do like direct manipulation of the DOM, and we can take advantage of WebAssembly. Maybe I should add a comment here that WebAssembly might be better than referring to the server. I don't know like what the performance hit is by making a request to the server to manipulate the canvas. What I'm thinking though is that users likely want to be able to pick up, drag and drop things very quickly without having to wait to sync up. And I don't know how, if the speed is not that big, if the performance is not of a concern, then it might be okay. I'm just wondering what happens if the server is trying to save the state of a really large thing, and then the user submits another. Then that ends up being like a queue, some type of queue for saving, so that we don't accidentally override. But that's a problem for another day. Like I said, we'll just make a quick sticky, which I figured out is this button here, and we'll just say potentially use WASM, WebAssembly, for direct DOM manipulation if performance becomes an issue. I actually did a spike for performance. I have to go back and fix it because I actually accidentally broke it, but I did a spike to see how many things I could render with Pixi.js. And in a simulation I was running, I had like varying sized circles being sort of generated by this sort of fountain animation. And at one point I was like at like 50, 60K objects being managed by memory, all moving at the same time. With variances in size and being animated, and that was quite a bit. So I don't think my user is going to get anywhere close to that. So if they do, then I'll be very surprised. So I'm not sure that I'm going to need the WASM, but if I do, it will be helpful for making like really big documents like much more easy to manipulate. I just don't know exactly at what point it becomes useful to use WASM, so I need to make sure that the way I'm handling. So if I have this data model here, and I have a very clear modular system for storing that data and making it available to the DOM, I can always replace that specific portion with a WASM module. So by making this modular, I guess is what I'm saying. But the WASM part would happen somewhere within the front end. For the canvas. Okay, so this is, let's go ahead and give this a label, and then that'll be the last thing I do. I'm gonna put both these screenshots on my LinkedIn page. So follow the official LinkedIn page for Primitive. I'm going to continue to try to make these documents and these little graphics available if you're interested. I love making these things. Okay, so the title for this will be Data Flow for Page Data. Datata. Datata is like data, but it is much better. It's the data of the future. Okay, so there we go. We can make that a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and bump it up. Make it title worthy. Let's go ahead and give it an underline. And maybe an emoji. Fire. Cool. No, fire sounds bad. Let's give it something more optimistic. Alien. Boom. Okay. Cool. I think that is pretty much it for me for now. And yeah, we made some good progress tonight. We got this whole thing sort of more organized. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't look much different, but this is, right now our goal is to make sure that this is well designed so that as we understand the critical flaws, in our assumptions, that, it being modular, it having hierarchy, us using reusable and replaceable components in a modular way, all that stuff makes it easier to maintain, fix, update, upgrade, and to manage risk and all that stuff. So, let me go ahead and close the stream. When we come back next time, what we're going to focus on is we're going to add some logs to our application so that we can create the habit of, just making it trackable, like what's happening when our app is running. And then that will give us robust access to log messages in the event that something breaks. It'll be really easy to sort of like help our AI agent figure out what's going on. And then also when we come back for the next stream, I'm going to work on setting up a really simple data model for the page and then getting that hooked up so that that data is sent to the back end and that we can store it and save it and as well as load it. We're going to do it where we can store and save multiples of them and then reload any of the ones that we have saved. And then what we'll do too is before we go right now, I will just update the this document here. I am going to consider that we have succeeded in everything here except for updating the SQL backend. Oh, that's something else. This is what I'm looking for. I think we've pretty much succeeded in doing the heart, not the literal of what this was getting at, but the heart of this, with the exception of our data model for what's being saved is not connected to the front end right now. So I'm actually just going to leave this like this is, but when we finish the front end part that we're doing right now, we're just going to have it rewrite what we actually did for this part so that this stays aligned and we can move forward with some mental peace. Okay, so anyways, thanks for coming by the stream. My name is Key, and before I go, I just want to tell you how cool you are. You're so cool, and you're part of the cool crew. You're part of the Wolf Pack. Thanks for coming over, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow, hit the bell icon. All those things that people always tell you to do in all their videos, do that over here. And I'll see you next time. Peace. Peace, pause, applesauce.